to look after these units. If one attempts to work on an EV vehicle without the adequate, so it can be very dangerous because it works on very high voltage. So we need now to reskill and retool our workshops. Yeah, you want the next one? Then there are component importers. These are people who import spare parts. I think there was a time when there was a proliferation of pirate parts, that's the term that was used, of various spares which are very cheap. And with respect to Nigeria, people always used to say these are Nigerian parts, which will just probably do a trip from Harare to Blawayo, hello Biafra. But these are things that we could make locally. I'll give you an example of some of the commodity manufacturers. We have been now probably gone out of business because of the importation. If guys look around the room, you would remember radiator and tuning. Radiator and tuning now it is closed. Yeah, it's due to technological changes and all this stuff on motor vehicles. But from a leading position right down to ministers, you say Zimbabweans were not laggards. And it was going to say Susu were like this. We should have done that in terms of transitioning from this old technology, from the copper fins that we were using, and migrated to aluminium. You know, we've got all the steel. Yes, there's a power issue, but we could have gotten some solution to ensure that industry continues. We've got motorcycle importers, tractor importers, and the fuel dealers. This includes fuel wholesalers and retailers. The next slide. What we have deliberately tried to do here is to answer the questions in terms of current employment levels. These are some estimates that we have from old statistics, because the time that we were given to prepare this presentation was very tight. The sector is 1,300 registered establishments, currently employing approximately 10,000 people. The majority of them, Honorable Minister, are in the fuel retail sector. You would understand why I'm sure you see the proliferation of service stations in our country. And when I speak like this, you are looking in excess of 60% of this workforce. So the 40% are really the people that are working technically on this year. The majority of the manufacturing plants are operating, Honorable Minister, below 5%. All that installed capacity in our country is only operating 5%. Honorable Minister, you will be aware the requirements of government in terms of transport is huge. Huge. There was a tender recently, I'm sure you may have seen it, flagged by Zupco for the importation of a lot of buses. And we've got assembly plants with the capacity to supply over 80% of those over time, of course, right? Coming from a resuscitation stage. Then we've got dealerships who are selling more imported new vehicles, which we see in their showrooms all the time, creating very little employment, probably the sales consultants, and very few in the workshops. Because these vehicles that are now coming in, the service intervals now are 10,000 kilometers. If I ask anybody how long will it take you to travel 10,000 kilometers? If you really, a person will travel 6-7 months. What happens to the workshop staff? And some of the vehicles are serviced after 15,000 kilometers, which can really go for a year. Yeah. The impact of that is good impact for us, the users. That's technology. So those are the changes. I've spoken about radiator and cleaning. Let's move on to the next one. Current skills gap. Now, the migration that I spoke about from the IC to the EV requires new skills. These skills, we are now in the process of working with some OEMs, right? OEMs means original equipment manufacturers, so that we see the requirements in terms of one, the after-sales maintenance, number two, the assembly process of these units. Number three, We then look at opportunities of reverse engineering certain components, which we should be able to make. Remember, the EV vehicle, it must be light in terms of weight, but strong in terms of its strength to be able to sustain our road operations in the country. So the issues now of other alternatives in terms of making these bodies comes into effect. The composite materials which have been already raised, this is where the research should be. We need now to get the people with the right skills for us to look at the materials that we need to use on the EV vehicles. And we don't ignore the old vehicles that are still operating and running, because it's a transition. If you remember, I said we learn skills and learn and relearn. We are now, some of the people now are at the stage of unlearning, relearning new skills, new methods of assembly. Yeah, the country is behind from a technological perspective on production and modern servicing of new vehicles, the ones that I've just highlighted just now. Manufacturing and assembly skills are depleted or non-existent because the assembly companies, as I say, some of them operating at 5% or some almost moribund. It means that there is no people, that overhead cannot be sustained. So once again, Honorable Minister, we continue to request that you lobby and support your colleagues to support local industry when procuring these vehicles. We are lagging behind in fast-paced technological changes. Electronic, hydraulic, and pneumatic technicians, etc. These are the new skills that are then required to work on these things. When I speak like this, I spoke about a hybrid vehicle. We all know about the power steering, we know to drive our cars. That's the hydraulic aspect. Some of these vehicles you see with the suspension that goes up and comes down on its own. But these things now, whereas is just a touch of a button. That's the electronic part of it. So